This has been a very incredibly busy month as we witness and respond to the historic investment announcements for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Just over a year ago, Pacific Community Ventures began to prepare for this moment, recognizing that CDFIs like us are going to be playing a very critical role in supporting community readiness to absorb the massive investment that some in Washington are calling the Green New Deal. We also recognize that while the original New Deal created significant infrastructure and wealth, that wealth was not necessarily distributed or recognized across all communities equally and inclusively. Next slide, please. For those of you not familiar with our work, we are a 501c3 CDFI, small business lender, committed to impact first restorative lending. And in 2023, 96% of our loan capital went to entrepreneurs of color and women. This is thanks in large part to a robust community of network partners who are building awareness around our work, just like Bendu, who's on this call today. We're entering a critical moment in the US. Next slide, please. Where we're facing two intersected systemic crises. First, there is the existential threat of the climate crisis, as well as the deadweight economic and social losses that we're recognizing and accumulating from persistent gender and racial wealth gaps. Addressing the climate crisis without addressing these wealth gaps risks worsening adverse conditions in health, livability, and economic prosperity in the underestimated communities already experiencing disproportionate climate impacts. Next slide. It's impossible to see numbers like these, and these are the numbers that represent the level of investment required to address the climate crisis sufficiently. It's impossible to see numbers like these and to not recognize that someone is going to be building wealth. The opportunity is just immense. Next slide, please. We're hopeful because the federal mandate to ensure 40% of climate dollars are used to support these communities, the Justice 40 initiative. So this is a federal program that is ensuring that the money coming out of the GGRF and through all federal programs, as well as like the broader Inflation Reduction Act, are being recognized in historically socially disadvantaged communities. And so there's a real opportunity here for things to happen differently. But I'll name two concerns. The first is that many infrastructure-related small family and local businesses don't necessarily perceive GGRF opportunity as something that's fully accessible, something that is intended for them. Many of the businesses that we seek to invest in may not even perceive themselves as climate businesses. I had the privilege of recently attending the Department of Energy's 2024 MBE, that's Minority Business Enterprise Connect Summit. And when the crowd was asked how many had heard of the Justice 40 initiative, there were very few hands that were raised. So one of the challenges that we have is an awareness challenge. Next slide. The other unfortunate reality is without access to capital and networks, the firms that we are seeking to invest in just will not be able to absorb the demand for the projects that are coming down the pipe. And our panelists are going to discuss these elements and issues a little bit later. But in sum, the firms that we're seeking to invest in are underbanked, and smoothing cash flow to achieve sustainable growth can be a challenge. Next slide. This is a critical moment for the CDFI network as we were incubated through the civil rights movement. And we are intended to serve LMI, historically redlined, and other underestimated community to improve access to opportunities. When PCV evaluated the need in the communities that we are serving well as we were planning for this fund, comparing our investees, shown here in the Bay Area, the orange dots, we saw a lot of overlap. We had known from prior analysis that 84% of our loans were going to LMI neighborhoods. I mentioned earlier, 96% to entrepreneurs of color and women. And what's kind of exciting here is that I shouldn't say exciting, but what we learned here when we overlaid the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index, which shows communities that are the most at risk from the climate crisis, we saw that 64% of our loans were already being deployed into high and moderate climate risk areas, at least in 2023. I'll also mention that if you look at our Oakland Fund report that we just released, that you'll also see that 96% of our lending is happening in historically redlined communities, at least for that place-based fund. So I will flag a challenge for CDFIs, ones that PCV is actively working to address. And that is that the impact tracking for Justice 40 communities is going to be a little bit more complex, particularly for those of us that are doing work with the workforce and contractor side. This data is premised it's based in census tracts, which is a little bit more difficult to access than the zip code data that we typically have. I think that there's a little bit of a lift ahead of us as a community that we're looking to lead around to make sure that we can do this mapping and impact tracking accurately so that we are utilizing our finite resources to originate and create opportunity pathways effectively within the Justice 40 communities as intended. Next slide, please. So with all of that said, I am really, really excited to be on this call this morning with my colleague, Robin Rogan, who's our Senior Director of Fund Innovation, with Bendu Griffin, who is our community partner, who was instrumental in helping us to incubate this fund, as well as our PCV client from FTS Lighting, Michele Davidson, and Lawrence, her business advisor, just to announce that we are launching our Climate Justice Mobilization Fund. Our thesis around this fund shifts economic power into the hands of communities Justice 40 is intended to serve, to ensure that projects that improve the safety and livability of the community are actually being installed and created and built by members of the community, and improving the community, houses, schools, workplaces, and gathering spaces. So what is the fund? Beginning in 2024, PCV is going to be offering 2 distinct loan offerings, both with the goal of bridging the gap between project readiness and revenue recognition, empowering small businesses to bid on and undertake projects that they would otherwise be unable to pursue due to liquidity constraints and persistent delayed payments from project owners. These affordable and flexible loans are intended to position underserved small businesses to participate in the emerging climate economy, fostering job creation and wealth-building opportunities within underestimated communities. We have already launched, and the Apply Now page is live, our Good and Green Small Business Loan, which provides working capital to businesses helping their clients operate more sustainably, including installers of energy-efficient equipment and material, as well as professional service firms and contractors involved in building decarbonization and electrification. This loan is priced at a discount to PCV's standard loan and has an interest-only period for up to 12 months. We're also really excited later in Q2. We plan to launch a contract-based financing solution to licensed contractors and subcontractors. This loan is going to support historically underinvested contractors with upfront mobilization capital to invest in materials and staff for public works projects in our hometown of Oakland. Repayment terms are going to be flexible and structured to match the project cash flow. This innovative loan will enable undercapitalized contractors to increase their contracting capacity and successfully bid for, win, and deliver on public agency projects. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention down the road at a future date, we are evaluating the possibility of creating a loan product to support our clients in going green. So we're just really excited by the path ahead for here. Next slide, please. In measuring our success, it's really important to us to look beyond dollars deployed. with sustainable growth to equitable climate economy participation being our North Star. Our business advising platform currently provides pro bono one-to-one mentorship support for our clients. We're in the process of recruiting expert advisors for the industries that we're looking to invest in, as well as providing focused support on lending readiness, resource mapping for participation in partner ecosystems, as well as networking expertise, democratizing access to opportunity. So, call to action, next slide. We are really excited to be launching the fund. There are a lot of opportunities to get involved and partner with us. This is an initiative where we're going to go farther if we go together. We are launching by deploying $750,000 from our $10 million planned capital raise, thanks to the OFN Finance Justice Fund. Next slide. We're also openly calling for partners to join us on this journey. Our goal here is not to reinvent the wheel for technical assistance. There are a lot of great programs out there and a lot of contractor support networks, but our goal is to create pathways for our clients to engage with existing programs, as well as project pipelines within the communities we serve. Ecosystem partners include supplier diversity channels for developers, corporates, sports authority, and utilities. We're also eager to explore engagement with our affordable housing partners to connect our clients to projects in need of workforce. And we're always looking for volunteer advisors to be part of our business advising platform. Thank you again to Lawrence for joining us today for being a business advisor.
My pleasure.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Lawrence. And now I'm really excited to introduce my friend and one of the guiding forces behind the Climate Justice Mobilization Fund, Bendu Griffin. So Bendu, really excited that you could join us today. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about Tonma and how you got to know Pacific Community Ventures.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I love PCV. My journey with PCV, I guess maybe I'll start that angle. A friend of mine told me about this organization that does exactly what you said, one-on-one business mentoring. And I was like, yeah, right. And I'm like, if I've seen one, I've seen a million. And she said, no, 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 I've joined. You need to join. And so I reached out, skeptical, of course. I needed a capability statement. And my goodness, I had tried. Something sounds so easy to get done, and I couldn't get it done. So anyway, I got a mentor, and guess what? It worked. I got my capability statement done. It was done according to my schedule, on my terms. We met when I was available. So it wasn't one of those 10 a.m. and you have to be there. So it was very, very great. And then I needed more services when that was done. And I was able to reach out and I got the one-on-one mentoring for the services I needed. I call Tonma a bridge builder. The name means namesake. We literally become our client's namesake. So as if it's our own business, whatever we do for our clients is as if we're doing it for ourselves. We are a bridge connecting resources to individuals, to small businesses, disadvantaged businesses, helping to level the playing field. We are advocates in policy to make sure that policies that are created actually benefit the end user. So not just policy for policy's sake. And then also taking the myth out of, not myth, but the mystery out of policy and making it a everyday for everyone to understand. That's pretty much what we do. As I was telling the panel earlier, bridges come in all different sizes. They're straight, some go up, come down, they curve around. Wherever the bridge goes, that's where we go to make sure to funnel a way through for these small businesses and individuals that need economic freedom. So, thank you.
So, Bendu, you've worked for a number of agencies who've procured support from diverse suppliers. I'm curious, what strategic DBE needs became clear for you in that work, and how did that translate into how you started Tonma?
Um, Access to finance is always the biggest hurdle. Um, a business owner can know everything there is about doing their business. And if they don't have finances, they may as well not know anything. And then also technical support. A lot of business owners may get the financing, but they don't have the know-how, the back office, that whole how to tie it all into one pie. The pie has many pieces, and if any piece is missing, the contractor will not, or the consultant, professional service, or even a retailer will not be successful. And that's what we were finding a lot of. We were certifying a lot of businesses. You know, we tell them, come get certified as an MBE, WBE, DBE, LBE, the whole alphabet, the gamut of the alphabet, right? And they will be certified for 10, 15, 20 years and never get a project. So learning how to bid, what did they need? What was the disconnect? And there was that disconnect. And so we started Tonma from that aspect, but then I also helped to run a construction company for 2 years. And we were successful. When I met my business partner, his business was at a negative 14,000. And I'm telling you, within a year, we had grossed $1 million. And people are like, impossible. And I'm like, no, it's not. So what I learned on the municipality side is what I brought over to Tonma. So a lot of our work is spent working one-on-one. A lot of small businesses, they need that one-on-one. And people want to herd them all into a pile. And each business is different. And that's what I love about PCV is that individual mentoring, that one-on-one. What does your business need to make you successful? Um, that's what Tonma brings to the table.
And just one more brief question. When I first met you, it was a little over a year ago with Bulbul and Bob Porter. We were on a call with a man by the name of Rafael Zamora, who's a local electrical engineer, and the late Eddie Dillard, who is a workforce development advocate, ally, and activist. We came together to discuss a role that PCV could play in approving with the GGRF upon what I think there was a consensus in the room were disappointing outcomes from an equity perspective for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So that was really the moment we conceived the need for the Climate Justice Mobilization Fund. And I'm curious, what are some of the hopes that you have from our work? And what are some of the persistent barriers requiring intentional innovation to ensure that the GGRF works as intended for the communities that we're working to serve?
Okay, so that was a fabulous meeting, and it was wonderful meeting you all in person at that time. Because before then, I was just, one of your clients, right, from the mentorship side. Um, I think our hope was one thing was seeing the work that you all had done, and talking to you all and talking to Boba and the vision for PCV and where PCV wanted to go, and the willingness to listen and take the money where the need is. It wasn't, you all weren't stuck. Um, I think following the the money trail, the policy side of it, where the money is coming from. Like when we met with Senator, Barbara Lee's senior staff, getting them to understand that policies need to be put in place to ensure that the money trickles all the way down to the end user. And money tends to get stuck. It flows down. There's these great initiatives. The president comes out, some senator comes out, right? And they have this great, everyone claps their hand. Oh, wow, money is coming. Money comes and it gets stuck. It goes so far. And everyone from the top to the middle tends to benefit. But for some reason, it doesn't get down to the end user. The funnel gets a lot smaller as it goes down, and the money either stops or just drops, tend to fall down on just a few. And so I think our work, if I'm hearing your question correctly, just that whole excitement in education, contractors need education. The talk from Rafael Zamora was, we don't just need to throw money at people. They don't know what to do with the money. We need this ecosystem. It needs to be a wraparound, right? And I think from that, and then working with you all, sitting in some meetings and hearing some of what PCV is doing to make sure that this wraparound happens, that contractors benefit. And I think that was our biggest key point, was that contractors are not benefiting. So it's the what's in it for contractors to join into this, to buy in. They're going to get funding. A big thing, a key barrier, a key hoop that they have to jump through. They're actually going to have workers, the opportunity for trained workers. That was something Raphael was very concerned about, right? He sort of had like this huge warehouse mentality, where in one corner the workers being trained, and then you have the contractors being trained, and then you have the contractors get the funding, and they in turn able to pay the workers. So it becomes a huge ecosystem, and the money goes where it's supposed to go. We talk Justice 40, but Justice 40 sometimes end up just downtown. It doesn't go to the far reaches of East Oakland or West Oakland, or, the Chinatown, or in the barrios, or where, the African American contractors live and breathe. And then that exclusion for certain contractors, and take it outside of just the electrification like you all are doing. We're talking electrification, but then with the view for all construction, you know, so that it's not limited. The funds are no longer limited. And that's always been, we see contractors that do great work, wouldn't take it away from them, but they're really not able to participate because they can only bid $100,000 job, maybe 50,000, when they should be doing 1 to 2 million or maybe more. And so that's the exciting part about this, is that our contractors are finally going to be able to realize not just money, but what comes with it, the knowledge, the skills, and how to get a loan and successfully pay it back, right? Without now messing up your credit and not having to go to a bank and have your application thrown in the trash when you walk out. So
or putting it on your credit card so that you can get an opportunity. Yeah. Or
right,
putting it,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, because we have contractors like that. They max out their credit card. There was this one little contractor, and I mean, this really got to me. He was trying to get paid, trying to get his money from the prime. He's supposed to get paid every 2 weeks. Here it was almost 4 months later. And I literally felt so bad. I was like, would you like me to loan you money? Like, I don't have a lot of money, but I will loan you. And he was like, oh my God, can you loan me and I'll pay you back? Contractors having to go to that length. He had maxed his credit card out already, and no funding to be able to handle his project. And he is an excellent small business contractor. So this is going to free contractors to be able to do what they need to do and be able to pay back without messing up their credit. I think that's fabulous.
So we're excited again to work with you. I think it's amazing that when we keep our clients with us on these journeys and allow you to inform the way that we do our work.
Yeah.
You did mention that there's a lot of money coming in a lot of ways. That's an economic shock, right? And our North Star isn't just making sure that it gets out to everybody, but that it is in fact catalytic in supporting the sustainable growth of these businesses over the long term. So we're really, really excited to continue our work with you. And I think it's a really great time now for us to introduce and pivot over to Robin Rogan, who's invited one of our pilot Good and Green clients, Michele Davidson, with FTS Lighting, as well as her business advisor, Lawrence. So over to you, Robin. Bendu, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey and Bendu. There was so many nuggets in there. Listening deeply and deploying it where the need is. The money tends to get stuck. Making sure it gets into community is really what this fund is all about, is trying to solve that that market gap that we heard from the community. We heard from you. We hear from Michele. So thank you for that. Transitioning to our chat. I'm so excited to have Michele and Larry here. We are going to explore with a real life example of how PCV's affordable capital paired with our business advising service that Bendu and Casey mentioned can help entrepreneurs like Michele reposition their companies and take advantage of this shift that is happening in the economy in the hopes of creating wealth for the owner, their employees, their community, etc. So let's get into the conversation. First, we're going to do some quick intros. So Michele has been an entrepreneur most of her life. She has owned a paralegal firm, a restaurant or two maybe, and for the last 40 years been president and CEO of FTS Lighting Services. FTS is a one-stop shop for all lighting, recycling, and electrical needs, from products to energy-saving analysis to lighting design and retrofit and installation services. Her greatest wish is to help make a positive change to the environment and to humanity, making the world a little brighter one day at a time. And on a personal note, I just got to know Michele last year, and every time I talk to her, I am inspired. And you do bring light and positive energy to everything you do, genuinely. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Larry Chiarella is Michele's business advisor, and they were matched last year shortly after PCV provided our loan to FTS Lighting Services. And at our staff retreat earlier this year, we had some time to chat with Michele and catch up, and she just raved about her experience with Larry. And that led to this webinar. So thank you, Larry, for being here. A little bit about his background. He spent 35 years essentially leading companies. After completing his undergrad in engineering, followed by an MBA, he went into general management, a number of different roles, including at Philips Technologies and Fujifilm, culminating in serving as president and CEO of Ampex Corporation before retiring 10 years ago. And since his retirement, he has provided expert guidance to a number of PCV clients. So he is a dedicated PCV advisor for over the last decade. So please join me in welcoming Michele and Larry to the webinar. Okay, our first question is for you, Michele. As CEO of a company that has been around for 3 generations, wow, you have had to adapt your business model amidst rapid technological advancement and industry-wide shifts. Can you tell us more about how and why you've repositioned FTS Lighting to focus on sustainability, and what the impact of that pivot has been on your business?
Sure. And thank you so much for your kind words. My company has been around for 3 generations, and we started as my grandfather invented the rejuvenating machine for fluorescent tubes back in the 40s. So we were kind of energy efficient at that time in recycling fluorescent tubes. You had this machine that kind of zapped bulbs back to life, like Frankenstein, if you will. And so we would take out old light bulbs and replace them with new light bulbs. And so really we were ahead of our times. My grandfather was, and looking at energy sustainability. So through the years, my grandmother took over in 1952 upon his illness. We became a very young, first woman-owned business and a very large community of large companies and mostly male-driven. And so there was a challenge, and I learned a lot from her. So we were a lighting wholesale distributor for schools, prisons, well, actually prisons and what have you was when I took over, but property management, high rises and what have you. So I took over the company about 40 plus years ago. And again, we were just wholesale lighting. And as the times have changed now through the years, we've gone into energy sustainability. And for us as a lighting company, that means LEDs. And so what were we going to do Sure, we can change these clients over to LEDs, but once they're installed, they're not going to need to reorder for 5 to 10 years. And so going from a business that was a supplier to contractors and what have you, every week getting orders, it changed overnight, basically. And of course, we had the challenge of COVID before that, or well, actually during that. So the buildings that we supplied, schools, federal facilities, what have you, they shut down. So what are we going to do? How am I going to feed my family, my employees, and keep the business going? So we came up with being a project-driven company and going along with mandated laws with the state of California and the federal government, seeing what was in the future. So starting in 2024 through 2025, there are mandates to go to LED lighting. So we're that answer. And with that comes recycling. So we expanded our recycling services, and now we're embarking upon EV, electric vehicle charging. And with that is rebates. And I couldn't have done any of that without the assistance of the Pacific community and Larry helping me to put performance together, cash flow management, bringing in some of the staff that I needed to market, business develop, and what have you. So.
Thank you, Michele. Quite a journey. It's fascinating hearing about the start of the company with your grandfather and the history of your grandma being one of the first woman-owned businesses. That touches me every time. Thank you for sharing that. This next question is for both of you, and it double clicks on this transition you just spoke of you were providing inventory essentially every 1 or 2 weeks to contractors, and then the LED light was installed and suddenly they don't need to be replaced for 5 or 10 years. How do you fill that cash flow gap and this notion of shifting to a project-based company? So this next question, again, we'll hear from both of you, is transitioning a business requires time and funding. And your business, like many out there, have long lead times, given your work with government and other large contracts. PCV was happy to have provided support through our loan last year and connection to Larry. And we're curious to hear more about how the loan specifically, you began to touch on this in the last question, but how the loan specifically and connection to Larry helped support the transition from the previous model to this notion of a focus on procuring contracts that have these large or long lead times and often delays or investment required. Michele, we'll start with you, and then Larry, will shift to you to hear your perspective on how you have helped Michele think through these issues. But Michele.
So the lending went for cash flow. A lot of our projects are with the federal government in joining and teaming agreements and what have you. And with Congress not passing the budget, we had projects that were approved with Siemens and some other energy management companies that we've joined with. However, the funding wasn't coming, along with schools and private communities that were kind of holding back, waiting to see what was going to happen with everything. So cash flow, number one, business development, and an accounting person that I really needed to work closely with me on managing our cash flow during those times. And Larry has been and still remains very quintessential in that process.
Thanks for that. Larry, curious to hear your perspective on how you've helped Michele, where you think your expertise has been most valuable to her as she thinks through this business transition to be more project contract focused. Oh, I think you're on mute. There we go.
I think I'm unmuted. Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle's business was forced into a transition. And whenever you're forced into a transition, then basically you lose control on, lots of things like cash flow, the structure of the business. She's gone from a business where she had a recurring revenue, as she mentioned, and very manageable. You could look at and say, okay, my contribution margin is this much, it's generating this gross profit, and therefore I can handle this amount of expenses. But now all of a sudden you don't have the recurring revenue. So you are basically almost like a capital equipment company. So you have to close one contract at a time. And that becomes very, very time consuming.
Oh, we might have some connection issues.
Very, very difficult. Budgeting. So we're having connection issues.
We can hear you now. We can hear you
You're
now.
good. You're good to go now.
Yeah, it's only because I'm between the two biggest cities in New England, and I still have no internet. Anyway, what we tried to do is we tried to look at the business and try to bring a forward look to it, because the present value of the business is not very good if you look at it from a standpoint of shrinking sales, increased expenses. But if you look at it going forward in a pro forma value, and you start looking at then the closing and the growth of the business, the profitable growth of the business, then it becomes a valuable business. And that's what we tried to do. That's why we created
Okay, I think I'm gonna jump in here.
just pro forma.
Okay. Yeah, so focusing on the opportunity, following the new legislation around LED installation and doing the homework to figure out where those contracts are and how you get them, and building a pro forma based on that. Thank you, Larry. And
The pro forma is so quintessential, I have to tell you. It takes a lot of work,
Yeah.
but to look at those pro formas, those projections on paper, and look at profits and what have you, very, very useful tool. And there's no way I could have done that without Larry's help and continued help. So it's as important as reading and knowing your financials, your P&Ls, your balance sheets, which is kind of the very beginning in business, but you've got to really focus on that, especially with the climate that we currently have today.
Yeah, and Michele, I was going to offer that in conversations with Bendu and a lot of community listening we've been doing to understand, whether it be contractors or installers of energy efficient equipment, or companies providing services to help other companies be sustainable, so providing energy audits or design advice on how to reduce energy usage. A lot of the need we hear is this cash flow gap between bidding and winning a contract and preparing for it and actually having the cash to do it, because there's not a long runway of liquidity that a lot of small businesses have, because many of them are under or unbanked and don't have a treasure chest of cash to use. And so PCV, the idea really is to be that treasure chest to help mobilize so a whole community of contractors and folks who want to take advantage of this investment in climate have the capital paired with the resources and the networks to participate, to begin participating. And once they begin, one contract begets another contract, begets another one, cash flow begets more cash flow, etc. And hopefully there's this beautiful ripple effect. So moving to our next question, sticking with opportunity. I loved hearing how in one of our prep calls, Michele, you mentioned staff hire you made that was essential because she brought a lot of research on where to go look for contracts. That was interesting to me. So zooming out a little bit, given the billions of dollars deployed or being deployed to support the clean energy transition, both across government and in the private sector, both of which will be leveraged, lots of money going around. Where do you see, Michele, the greatest opportunities for businesses interested in expanding into the climate sector? And as a woman-owned business, could you speak to opportunities or advice for disadvantaged business enterprises in particular? So that alphabet soup of business labels that Bendu mentioned, LBE, MBE, DBE. I'm still learning. There's lots of BEs.
There are so many BEs, so many BEs, and they're growing and expanding in that community, right? For us, we picked our market niche being federal and municipal work. Not just limiting to that. So we do work with property management and the people that we in our research know are going into the world of energy sustainability, and also by mandates, right? So state of California being one of the most aggressive across the country in insisting upon energy sustainability. So what are those categories? So for us, it's lighting. Recycling goes with it, of course, because you're going to get rid of the old and put in the new. And then, of course, EV car charging. So that's the areas that we picked. Now, how do we go about getting that business? So first we start with our DBE. The state of California, a disadvantaged business enterprise is really something that Caltrans, who is working very aggressively to help businesses, small business, certified small business enterprise, as well as DBE, disadvantaged business enterprise. That's really, and Caltrans, I encourage everybody to get involved. They have webinars, they have people to help you grow, they have small business advocates, and Caltrans has many different districts across the state of California. And so it's not only networking, but it's forming relationships with those individuals. They will help you. That's their job. That's what they want to do. And under that are so many categories. I mentored with a young lady who had a bakery company. And so she found her niche of her custards and what have you in an aspect of Caltrans having these events, right? And helping to cater and what have you. So I really encourage people to go that route. We do a lot of bidding now. So there's bids that come out, and that's what Brenda does. And Brenda is such an expert. She loves to read bills. She will read bills and grants from page 1 to page 2000, and so that's her thing. And so that's helped us a lot. Our woman-owned certification and SBE, really, the calling is with the federal government. So the only thing with the federal government is we can get bid awards, but when are they going to start? And that's where we need that cash flow, because it takes time, it takes signatures, Congress approving, and then they give a little bit of money. And then, as Bendu said, then it goes down, the funnel, if you will. So contracts that we got awarded 2 years ago are just now coming through. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful. And of course, I'm a person of faith, so I believe in that as well, that, by the grace of God, that's what's helping us too. So that's what's helped us. That's what we've done.
Okay.
So we've just spread our portfolio, if you will, not just in one area, not just in one arena.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. And the final question is for both of you. And this speaks to the other side of the coin around challenges. And this is trying to anticipate so we can educate the folks we're trying to serve. As you've repositioned the business to be more climate focused, more project based, are there any barriers or unexpected challenges you've faced? You've spoken to a few in our dialogue. And Lawrence, after Michele addresses that, curious to hear your thoughts on any advice you'd offer our small businesses who are looking to pivot and get involved in the climate transition, but don't really know how or where to start. So Michele, starting with you.
Well, that's a big question. I think one of the biggest challenges we've had is projects absolutely 100% being closed, and you kind of count your eggs before they hatch, all right? And so we know a project's closed, they've guaranteed it, it's done, stamps on it, and then things change, right? Things change. So for me, rather than sticking in the box, I have a plan B and a plan C, and now a plan D, E, and F sometimes, just to get through that, right? So I think that's one of the challenges. Another is Bendu, I'm sorry, um, expressed is that funnel. So the challenge is these larger corporations, and they talk a great tale of helping small businesses sometimes. I'm talking on the corporate level now. Um, and then when it gets right down to it, and you think you've got everything you need, maybe you don't. And then so that's a loophole. And so we need advocates to help us get through that door.
Okay.
Does that help?
It absolutely helps. Yeah. Breaking into the corporate space, that is definitely a common theme that we are hearing from the community. And as we design the business advising program specific to climate, we're trying to think how we can be a bridge through, you know, advocates at certain companies, or at least developing relationships through deep networking, because so much of this business is, like many things, based on relationships. So how can we weave that in more intentionally to the design of our business advising for this climate fund? So no, it perfectly answers the question and is very
I
consistent.
think for organizations like you, it makes accountability.
Mhm.
So I do see the climate changing in that area of corporate. There are events now like PCL, Shimmick, some of these other large corporations where they actually are opening those doors a little bit more. And I think it's organizations like you that, you know, let's put your money where your mouth is, to kind of be frank about it. And
Yeah.
rather than just have all this fluff and come to see us, and we're going to give, and we're going to, you know, campaign and help you. But when you get right down to it, do they really? So I
Right.
think organizations like you that say, okay, let's be accountable, give us some examples. So
Well,
I
thank
think
you.
it's changing, finally.
Encouraging to hear. Let's accelerate that change together. So Lawrence, in our last couple of minutes, thoughts on advice you'd share more broadly to the small business community looking to pivot into this emerging climate economy?
Well, I think one of the first things that you learn when you are in big business, and it goes very well for small business, is you need a vision of what your business is. What exactly is my business, and how do I meet the goals and the challenges of that business?
Agreed. I think he might have frozen, but I
Rather
think
than the versus that you are going to do. The second thing is, do not try and transition too quickly, and
Mhm.
make sure that you have proper funding, because as you transition, you're if you're giving up your old business, which is generating your cash flow, you need to supplement it. And this is where what you're trying to do with your loans to support businesses making a transition is very, very valuable, because then you provide the funding to allow them to make the transition without going out of business, because that does not accomplish anything for anyone. So I would say plan very carefully, have a clear understanding and vision of what you want to do, and plan very carefully, plan your cash flow, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to phase in the new business.
Outstanding. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Well, we are at time. I feel like we could go on for a bit longer, but thank you, Michele and Larry, for joining us, for sharing your time, and most importantly, the wisdom that you have. It's honestly, as an employee of PCV, rewarding and fulfilling to see your relationship and just your dynamic. And I'm happy that we got to share that with the rest of our community. So we appreciate it. I think through your story, we've seen firsthand how this notion of an integrated model, really combining capital, which is important, but not going to solve the problem on its own, right? But capital paired with really sound advice from a trusted advisor, it's how you can help businesses succeed, and hopefully in this fund specifically participate in this emerging climate economy that has the potential to build a lot of successful businesses and create a lot of wealth in the communities that we want to be serving, those that have been underinvested in for too long. So thank you both, and back to you, Casey.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much to everybody. You know, we might have time for one quick question and answer. I did see one come in from one of the folks on the call. We are a minority and women-owned business in Oakland, and we're going through the certification process. Would love to schedule a call with PCV. And I typed into the chat, and happy to provide this to anybody else. I know that my contact information is going to come up at the end, but for all things support and lending, please do reach out to Robin Rogan, rrogan@pcvmail.org. Lou, are there any other questions coming in?
Not that I've seen, but I guess this is a call for any questions. We'd love to answer them now, and if not, we can connect offline and after the webinar itself.
Well, I will move ahead and just reiterate our call for ecosystem partners, for volunteers. We are, you know, there are lots of opportunities to get involved, and you know, I'll just repeat what my friend Robin said earlier, which is, you know, let's forge this transition. Let's do this together. Just on behalf of PCV, we're really excited to be engaged in this space. We're excited to engage with others. And I want to extend a very special thank you to Bendu, to Robin, to Michele and Larry. Thank you all for being a part of our community. We're excited to continue to grow this community. Again, it means so much to me when we work with our clients and partners in newer and bigger ways. I think that's just a unique testament to what a CDFI can do and can be for the communities that we serve. I also want to extend a really quick thanks to Lou Aguilar, as well as TK Burton Johnson and Hannah Boucher from the PCV team in helping us to put on this event today. Very much looking forward to future discussions. Please do stay tuned. We are launching this fund with a learning agenda through the Good Jobs Innovation Lab, which means that as we learn, as we do well, as we have growth opportunities, we're committed to sharing that with the broader CDFI and impact investing community, so that we make sure that as these climate opportunities and climate investments are hitting the market, that we are doing the most that we can for a just and equitable climate transition. Thank you again, everybody, and please do follow up. My email's on here with any remaining questions or outreach around partnership.
Thank you, Casey. An amazing organization. I'm very proud.
And those that may be on the call that know me, if you reach out to me, I'll put you in touch with PCV. I mean, I love that whole sustainability portion that Michele and Lawrence talked about. No business wants to fold. You know, you don't just want a business that dies when you die, God forbid, or, you know, that ends when you decide to retire. Like your grandfather, I love that story, passing on generational wealth and then figuring how to take it forward to the next generation. That's just truly amazing. And
It's been
PCV,
fun.
you're there. And that's the great part about it. You know, Michele, you would not have done it without PCV. No way.
Absolutely not.
So, yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.